economy, will you reopen the project to build a commuter train service between Reading and Philadelphia, thereby making Reading a viable suburb of Philadelphia?
From the first election I was involved in, I have been supportive of the concept of getting rail service renewed between Reading, Wyomissing, and ultimately Philadelphia. Many people are aware that an extensive study occurred in 2008, 2009 that made a recommendation. It was referred to as the R9 extension. Unfortunately, that study went nowhere. Right now, there is no movement on this issue. It's something I support, but it is also something that I don't see on the immediate horizon.
We have another question coming in from Dottie Haynes. How are you and Jennifer feeling about becoming grandparents?
Very excited. I've never experienced that before, and I think Dottie, I know Dottie personally, but Dottie is also a friend on Facebook, and our daughter Laura and her husband Mark, Lauren Mark Pruitt, announced, I believe last week, dear, on Facebook that they are expecting in August. I think the due date is August 11th, and it will make just me a grandparent. My wife will remain forever young, but my parents, it will also become their first great-grandchild, so we're very excited. Thank you, Donnie.
This question's coming in from Carol. Commissioner Leinbach, what would you like your legacy to be for the people of Berks County?
Well, I don't like talking about legacies. Legacies are something for someone else to discuss, but I hope that people will say that I was honest and did what I believed was right. I think that whether we're talking about business, churches, or government, that's really what people want. They want people that are going to be honest and consistently stand up for what's right and stand up against what they believe is wrong.
This question is coming from Kim Worrell. Berks County has many small business owners. As Commissioner, how do you plan on strengthening the local economy to ensure we have a climate conducive to small businesses?
And that is one of the driving forces, Kim, behind the LRTA proposal. I've watched the LRTAs go in place, and consistently they have been large businesses. To the credit of one of those local businesses, Enersys, when they were applying for their LRTA to Bern Township, one of the supervisors, Mr. Wagner, asked them the question, don't you think small businesses should be able to experience the benefits of a LRTA? And the gentleman from Enersys said, absolutely. The reality is the way LRTAs are set up today, it's almost impossible for a small mom and pop operation in the county to participate in a LRTA. I believe that statistically, the majority of new jobs and the majority of jobs in our country are from small business, 50 and fewer employers. If you talk to the Greater Reading Chamber of Commerce, 80% of their membership are small businesses. Small business drives our country, and we cannot become so fixated on the Fortune 500 and the Fortune 100 company that we leave the mom and pop small business operation to figure it out on their own. So I believe we need to focus on small business, and I'm committed to that.
All right, last question came in from Wes Stefanik. I apologize, Wes is a bit verbose. Good evening, Commissioner. This is Wes Stefanik with the Reading and Berks Association of Realtors. I want to take a moment just to say thank you for your service to Berks County. You have been an important partner and supporter of homeowners, and we congratulate you on running for re-election. My question for you is, except for school property taxes, what other local and state threats to private property rights do you rank as the most important, and what have you done in your position as Commissioner to tackle these issues?
Let me just touch on two that I talked about tonight that I was not able to really explain why they are a tremendous risk. Waters of the U.S. is a very serious issue. The EPA is redefining the water over which they have authority. And the language that they're using is known as Waters of the U.S. Proposed Regulations. I can tell you that every national farming organization, including the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau and our local Berks County Farm Bureau, are opposed to these regulations. The National Association of Counties is opposed. And here is the inconsistency. Late summer, and we've had regular, when I say we, the National Association of Counties, and I sit on the executive committee of that body, we've had regular communication with EPA on these regulations. And our issue is real simple. They're written in such an ambiguous way that we can't tell what they cover. They've told us, end of August, beginning of September, that it will only expand EPA authority by about 3%. A couple weeks later, the same individual from the EPA spoke before a large environmental national conference and told them that if these regulations are put into action, it will be the largest increase of federal control over water in the history of the agency. Now, it can't be both, but our fear, and the farming community's fear, and municipalities' fear, is that ditches along the side of the road that occasionally have runoff in them will now come under the control of the EPA. And a municipality or a farmer in a field that has eroded areas will not be able to make a move without approvals from the EPA. We think that's wrong. We think it is an overreach. I believe it's a violation of the 10th Amendment. What's the 10th Amendment? If you don't know what it is, it's in the Constitution, and it basically says any power not clearly designated to the federal government in the Constitution is reserved for the states and the people. We're way beyond that. You could say, well, why should we fight back? We have to fight back. FEMA is a similar issue. FEMA flood maps that were put out in 2011 for Berks County showed the existence of the Felix Dam on the Schuylkill River and the Angelica Dam on the Angelica Creek. The problem is they had been gone for years. More importantly, they still show on the FEMA flood map today, and they show businesses and homeowners in a floodplain, either a 100 or 500-year floodplain, jacking up their insurance rates when they're really not in the floodplain. And so we are working actively right now, and I've met literally with all of those parties, FEMA, DEP, Berks County Planning Commission, Muhlenberg Township, and Bern Township, which are involved in Felix Dam, to come up with a solution to get those maps corrected so that those citizens are not facing unbelievable costs. Some people are facing annual flood insurance rates of $10,000 to $15,000 a year. That's one thing if you're in a floodplain. It's another thing when you're clearly not in a floodplain. So those are two examples of active efforts that I'm involved in, working also with our associations. Both CCAP and NACO are involved in the FEMA floodplain issue and in the waters of the U.S. Are there any questions here? Any questions from the press? I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. And like I said earlier, I believe that we can do better, because that's the way we need to be, always striving to improve. And so our theme for this campaign is together making Berks better. Thank you very much for coming out.